Hello, and welcome to Metachemistry. This is episode 91, and today we're having one of our tournament prep series where we're going to talk about an event that we're looking to participate in and talk about, a little bit about the event, some things we've done to try and get ready or lack thereof, and, what we're hoping to accomplish and what the missions are and all that fun stuff. And so we're talking about Salt Lake Showdown. This is one of the Dire States events, one of the large regional events in the United States. And this will be taking place in Utah, of course. And this event is going to be coming up pretty soon, actually. And it's going to start on June 20th. So that's going to be set up on that day to kind of get things ready on that Thursday. And then game day 1 and 2 will be the 21st and 22nd of June for this 5-game event. And so we'll be looking to play Supremacy, Capture and Protect, Biotech Vor, Firefight, and a game of Resilience Operations. And before we kind of dive into our discussion on that today, we'd like to take a moment and thank Mo Games, who sponsors Metachemistry. Mythic's Online Emporium is an online supplier of Infinity, which you can find at mo-games.com. And as part of their sponsorship, patrons that are part of our show of any level get a 10% discount code. And for anyone that's on our Discord, regardless of whether or not you're a patron, you get a $40 coupon code raffled off each month for anyone that's part of the Discord. So in order to enter, just make sure you're on our Discord. So what's better than games? Mo Games. And with that, we have Trevor, Ian, and myself tonight. So how have things been looking for you guys in your gaming and or hobby endeavors over the last couple weeks? Trevor, when do you start?
It's been kind of hit or miss for work. This is my busy season, so sometimes I get games and sometimes I don't. So there's a little bit more travel on my this time of year in spring. So um trying to get games in when I can.
For sure. Work will definitely do that. Yeah. Ian?
Yeah, it's been a little hectic. My mom had surgery a few days ago and work stuff and this, that, and the other. So haven't been getting a lot of games in. But we did manage to do our annual giant multiplayer BattleTech Battle of Tukid game. And yeah, there was a blast, ton of fun. Did a really cool narrative scenario, and everybody had a great time. So that's the height of my gaming this past couple weeks.
Well, that's good. There's that at least, and hopefully, all is on the mend otherwise. For me, it's mostly just been kind of regular game night stuff, organizing local community to play at a local gaming pub. And yeah, so that's been fun. I did not play Torchlight this last week. I have been playing them for the last several weeks just to kind of try things out. I ended up getting a game of Tunguska in again because I do really enjoy Tunguska. They're definitely fun to play. So I just felt like doing something a little bit different. And yeah, it was a good time. Played Capture and Protect. Actually grabbed a beacon. It was great. Only took 6 orders worth of spec fire to get that Zondautica up there. Good. But yeah, so as far as the topic for discussion tonight, we have SLS or Salt Lake Showdown. And I am not sure, there's some accommodations questions that I still need to answer before that's really anything that I can make happen. But it sounds like both of you guys are looking to make it out to SLS. Is that right?
Yep.
Yes.
Awesome. And with the tournament starting to loom rather closely at just barely a month away, have you guys been taking any time to get any specific prep in or, just kind of working towards the missions at least or like narrowing down on lists or anything along those lines lately? I know our last little check-in there doesn't really sound like it, but maybe before the last couple weeks.
Well, I know I'm going to play Varuna.
That's right. Still
Yeah.
auto-locked to Varuna for now.
Yeah, so I'm going to play Varuna. It's a question of what ratio of Kamau, orcs, and tags I will be running, with secondary pieces running around doing other things. Yeah,
We
really.
lost our primary pieces in Varuna.
Yeah, I need to really kind of dial some stuff in there for the missions, but yeah, Varuna is very limited in terms of what it can take, so there's a lot of builds where it's just kind of the effective builds tend to just be more leaning towards either Kamau or orcs or tags kind of thing, and I'm trying to figure out which direction I kind of want to run with these lists. So there are a few options, but as one of the now older sectorials, which sounds weird, but they do not have the breadth of options that a lot of the other sectorials that are available to Pano have, like Winter 4 or Military Orders, which just have so many options.
True. There are a lot of profiles there.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you're not going to take a quadruple squallow list.
I mean, probably not, but I could.
Just for Biotech 4.
Just for Biotech 4.
Or capture and protect. Honestly,
I
I'll just
capture
shoot
it.
you out of the way.
It's fine. It's captured. I'm protecting it with my presence.
Now you need to take it from a tag. It fits.
Barely.
You still have 36 points to play around with after 4 squallows.
Yeah.
But yeah. So Varuna for you. And what about you, Trevor?
Well, I registered with Torchlight, and then Caledonia caught my eye. And I'm now keeping up with tradition, which is the month before a tournament, I second guess every single list I've ever made and army I'm going to choose. So working through those, but
sounds about right. Yeah, and I think that was a little bit to blame on John Libby.
Yeah. His book was so good. I enjoyed it, and it made me want to just play Caledonia. And then me and Ian privately were talking about Caledonia and how awesome it was. So that's been kind of working through some of the issues that I've had to overcome with it, because it's just not the playstyle that I'm used to. But it's been fun kind of figuring it out. I feel like I'm starting to get a hold of the list, but I know there's some missions like Biotech 4 that I am terrified of. So
Understandable.
I have one unit that is McMurder. So
right.
You just don't get caught in the zone. It's not that hard.
Just stay out of it. It's fine.
Yeah. You have enough stuff that infiltrates. Just make those rolls.
Yeah, that's the easy part. Make the rolls.
Fire teams, man. You got this.
So yeah, it's just been kind of playing around with it, but they're not the worst mission lineup. So they do a pretty good job at most of the missions. So
yeah, and I think that'll be fun. It's not an army that I see on the table too terribly frequently, so that's always kind of fun to play something a little bit novel. And out of print factions tend to do that.
Yeah.
And for those that aren't already aware, the book we were talking about is Ergart by John Libby. I haven't personally read it yet, but anyone I've talked to who's read it has only had good things to say about it, so definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, if I could give it more stars on Amazon, I would. It's great. So
We'll just create another profile and give it more stars.
Yeah, good point.
Buy it again so you're a verified purchaser.
Yeah.
It weights the review more highly, yeah. I don't know if that's actually true, but I know it says. So, as far as getting ready for the event, it's been kind of close, but there's stuff getting in the way. There's back and forths and hemming and hawing to account for. But have you been able to get in games using this mission lineup of Supremacy, Cap Protect, Biotech 4 Firefight, Res Ops?
Yeah, I would say most of the games that I think the local scene has played in the past month, I think it's been consistently SLS prep. I know we had a couple of people go to the Albuquerque tournament that
Mhm.
happened this past weekend, so May 17th and 18th and 19th. So I know a couple of those guys have been doing different missions, but mostly everyone's been doing SLS prep locally who's gone. So.
Yeah, I've had a handful of requests to play certain missions like that. Like Ahsoka wanting to play Firefight. I was like, we'll just pick a random mission from SLS. We'll do this. I just happen to have a Cascada. Like, oh, I see. I see how it is. But yeah, good stuff. So, Ian, does that sound like that rings pretty true for you as well? Have you been able to play at least one or two games of each of these so far, or in the last couple months
Yes, ish.
ish?
Yeah.
Like not
I
quite
mean,
all of them.
hasn't been necessarily by design. Of the last prep tournament did help, but I didn't really make specific lists for those missions. I just took lists I already had prepared that I had run before for other missions. I'm like, yeah, this might work for this, and sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't. Kind of when I get a little time, I'll get more refined on it and see what I want to try to take for this specific lineup.
Fair. So, with these missions, what kind of stands out to you when you see this lineup? I know there was a different lineup when the event was first posted, and I think that it was a good choice for the crew to change the lineup because it was very lopsided. It was a lot of CQB stuff where everybody wants to do, you know, mid to short range fights in the center of the table, basically every mission, which certainly favors some armies far more than others. I had a feeling that that was going to be a Steel Phalanx is overpowered scenario all over again. It's like, well, it is a good set of missions because everything forces you to go to the center of the table. But with this lineup here, is there anything in particular that kind of stands out to you as you either get ready or things that how you write your list to kind of cover these scenarios or anything in particular that kind of worries you about the lineup? Like, hey, I feel really comfortable with X, Y, and Z mission, but not so much with this one, or anything like that that kind of jumps out. Like, what are your initial thoughts seeing that lineup with the additions there or the changes rather?
Mobility is going to be super key. Every one of these missions outside of specifically resilience ops is going to benefit players that have high mobility. And you'll probably get pretty good use on resilience ops for that too. But having to
Certainly.
go through and like, I need to capture quadrants, or I need to capture the beacon on my opponent's side of the board. High mobility is going to be key to do that. Biotech 4, you got to be moving anyway. So it's order efficiency, high mobility to be able to get up there, get that stuff done. Obviously, you still need to be able to kill things. You still need to be able to defend yourself, but it's going to be a lot. It's a lot of missions where you gotta move around to be successful, and you can't really hunker down and have your fort kick ass. It's not going to necessarily go super well for some of these, especially Biotech 4.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. In my mind, that's the one that kind of stands out as being very different from the rest. Yeah. What about you, Trevor?
Yeah, it's the resilience kind of a unit. So for me, because yeah, you have to move out, but you also have to be able to stay there and survive there, and maybe take a shot or two. So I know that that's what I've been kind of looking at when I build my list is like, how much heavy armor can I fit into a list, or how much total immunity, or like something that just like kind of helps me get up the board, as Ian was saying, and then be able to stay there as well.
Yeah, I agree with res ops in particular. Mobility and durability are kind of key there, with how those end up lining up. One thing that I thought was interesting was that they pre-drew battle conditions. Like I knew that there was mention that battle conditions would have been drawn um, and just applied to everyone, which I can understand from a TO perspective to not have to worry about necessarily needing all of the additional elements or this table is using this set of conditions and that one's using that set of conditions, and a question comes up and it's not taken into account or whatever the case may be. But I saw that there was voting on the conditions available, and so this one ended up going with storm and urban combat. So that's a pretty interesting mix that you know makes my OSS brain drool for the Marut, because she loves both of those things. For those that haven't played very much Res Ops, Storm gives all units that have multispectral visor, biometric visor, or X visor +1 ballistic skill, and Urban Combat gives all units +1 to their first move value, unless they have terrain total, in which case they get +2 to their first move value. So everything being at least 1 inch faster is pretty notable, and there's plenty of things that will be even faster than that. And skirmishers are going to be pretty common still in general, I think, because there's no exclusion zones or confused deployment or anything like that in Res Ops. And so the vast majority of those have terrain total. So you have all these 6'4" shotgun skirmishers running around the midfield under camo markers, which sounds wild. But yeah, what are your thoughts there? Do you like being able to plan for it from a list building perspective, or would you prefer it to be kind of just drawn at the event and you get the hand you're dealt?
I prefer get the hand you're dealt because, specifically in this case, while I understand having every table running the same conditions, I think that's actually kind of cool and it makes things very even and fair, also speeding things up. I do not like that the players can build for specifically for these conditions, because while urban combat just gives a benefit to everything essentially, but also the terrain total, which is, it's not uncommon, but it's not necessarily on everything, but it's on enough. That's fine. Honestly, it's Storm that I think is kind of the one that's like, if it came up, that would be fine. But since everybody knows what it's going to be and you can build specifically to take advantage of it, it allows some factions to disproportionately boost their effectiveness at no extra cost. If it was, I happen to have a guy with MSV, or 2 or like whatever, it wouldn't be a big deal. But now, knowing about it, so there are factions that have multiple units that can run either, an X visor or MSV that can be fire teamed. And so now all of a sudden that entire fire team, instead of +3 ballistic skill, they're like +4 ballistic skill. It gets up there pretty good. And then having the resiliency of 5 guys that all have that, it can be brutal. Even though they're an out of print faction, we were bouncing around Merovingia because their Brisk cards and the Lugaroos, which are both very solid, very good fire team options, both just get automatic boosted to ballistic skill 13. And that is very good. And you can effectively build around both of those pretty inexpensively because Ariadna.
Right.
And there are other factions that have a pretty good amount of MSV and X visor. Biometric visor, I'm not as worried about because it comes up on so few things. And I'm actually totally fine with it because it makes a biometric visor actually just that little bit more useful.
Right. Yeah, considering it doesn't do its normal job.
Yeah, but I don't like being able to build specifically to take advantage of a rule in a way that you get disproportionate benefit for no extra cost.
Sure. What about you, Trevor? What are your thoughts on pre-drawing / voting on these as opposed to day of after list submission?
I agree with Ian. For the most part, I'm not a huge fan of it. Like at the table, my favorite part about Res Ops is like if you get lucky with your list that you brought of seeing if you can benefit from something with battle conditions. It's
Sure.
kind of the fun part about it where you're like, oh, thank like, whoo, or of like if something just doesn't go your way, you're like, yeah, well, like that's part of the game. That's the unknown of this mission. I've started to lean towards that. I don't like this method from a player standpoint because like I've caught myself so many times making lists or looking at armies and going, "Oh, that's great for res ops. I'm going to add that." And I go, "This is one mission out of 5 missions. Like this is a small boon." But it's definitely influencing my list building to a point where I'm like, I have to keep reminding myself like this is just a mission. It's not good for all the missions. So that's been kind of annoying to deal with.
Right.
But from a TO standpoint, I totally agree. Like it makes things so much cleaner. I just wish they did it at the event. Even you could even chose them already ahead of time, months in advance, so that you know what you're going to run, just so all the TOs are aware. But yeah,
Sure.
I don't think it should be public information until the day of.
Yeah, I am in the same boat as both of you on that note, is that I do wish that they were hidden until the mission was announced. So kind of at the start when most TOs are kind of going over, hey, here's the mission, here's the scoring, go get them. Like that would be the perfect time to do that. Like you said, even if they already knew what they wanted, like maybe they don't want things with extra elements, so you're not taking like ambush with all the camo markers or defense system malfunction with the extra turrets or the things like that. But the thing that kind of for me, I think it's that the nature of res ops is that it's random and you just kind of need to roll with the punches, and you don't really get that with this method, especially battle conditions, because with tactical objectives, you at least get to pick your list after you see your tactical objectives. But battle conditions are always drawn after that point, so you're already locked into your list before that. So it feels even more so in that vein of like, these are those punches you need to roll with. But yeah. I mean, I think that it is a perfectly serviceable way to handle the mission. Um, I wouldn't begrudge anyone for using that, but I do think that it falls outside of what I feel like the spirit of the game is a little bit in regards to that game mode, at least. But one thing that I found kind of interesting with this mission lineup is that considering that there's an extra rule around it this season, and it's kind of prevalent in a bunch of missions, that there are no exclusion zones in any of these.
Yeah, I think it's kind of refreshing because I feel like there's been so many exclusion
A lot.
zones, and now seeing like basically open deployment or normal deployment, I should say. For the most
Mhm.
part, it's nice outside of Biotech 4, but that's been kind of a nice for me at least. I'm like, oh, this is nice breath of fresh air. So.
Mhm. Yeah, so I think that's kind of interesting to see, just because it's fairly prevalent, and border skirmishers is a fairly powerful rule. But yeah, so that was kind of cool. Like I mean, I could take it or leave it. Like there could have been an exclusion zone mission here or not, and it wouldn't have necessarily bothered me, depending on which one it was, I suppose. But yeah, which kind of lends to your earlier point, Ian, about all of the mobility. And one form of mobility is just already being there. Like particularly in something like supremacy or even potentially capture and protect. Being able to start up the field if you have something that can, sneak under whatever arrows or mines or repeaters or whatever your opponent's placing around their beacon to protect it. Um, yeah, that can potentially be really powerful and save you a good chunk of orders. But I also feel like that these are kind of, generally speaking, kind of low scoring missions and or very mutually exclusive scoring. Like firefight and biotech war, I feel like kind of lean towards either you're really winning or you're not. And then supremacy and especially capture and protect. Capture and protect always feels like a low scoring mission because it's difficult to get across the table and snag that and then also keep it. I know when Jaeger and I played at SLS last year, yeah, we didn't score almost anything. Like I think that I think that he got something into base contact with my beacon, but then either picked it up and died or couldn't grab it or something like that. But yeah, it's like we were not getting anything. We were both bouncing off of the brick wall of each other's defenses. Like it's an interesting mission, but I always feel like it's hard to get points unless you have some very significant advantage.
Yeah, I do enjoy capture and protect a lot, but yeah, there's never a game where it's like, or very rarely there's a game where it's like you get 10 out or you get the 10-0. So it's I do love it. I just love the swap capture and protect.
Yeah. Yeah, like it's a cool mission, but yeah, I generally find it between players, it tends to be low scoring. Like I said, I ended up playing just this past week, and I was playing with Tunguska, and I did go 10-1, uh, because I managed to drop smoke. And my opponent was playing, a 3, 4, 3 tag list. It's 3 tag. It was, Squallow Mark 1, Mark 2 Tikbalum, and so there was no MSV. Just lots of big guns. So Zonautica was able to smoke up. There were no mines or anything to stop it. And so Zonautica was able to head up and grab it and run back to my deployment zone, despite spending 5 or 6 orders spec firing the final stretch. And then just couldn't get back into my deployment zone without dealing with arrows that I had and things like that. Um, but that's not a common situation, I don't think. Cody loves his tags, and I don't blame him. Tags are sweet. Up to you that you feel like, okay, well, I'm definitely going to need some specific tools, or maybe either in both lists, or maybe I need to make a separate list for one of these missions, or things that might be tripping you up when trying to get a pair of lists or anything like that with this lineup?
Yeah. So like I think that like you want your killy list and you want kind of your specialist list, because you're gonna need your specialist list to do like supremacy and capture and protect, and then biotech vor, firefight, and resilience ops tend to be much more killy. So the weird one here though is firefight, because I feel like if I take the same list for those 3 missions, and I'm good on biotech 4 because I'm just moving up and killing stuff, and I'm good in resilience ops because I'm just moving up and killing stuff. Firefight is the outlier where it gets weird, because I'm moving up and killing stuff, but you don't want to have specialists, because which you don't really need in those other 2 missions, because you'll give your opponent points, but then you're also denying yourself a lot of the classified objectives you could potentially draw, and that's up to 3 points right there. So it's kind of it's always the conundrum with firefight. Do I take specialists? Do I not take specialists? Do I just sacrifice potentially up to 3 points potential just to deny my opponent the ability to kill more specialists?
Yeah, and I mean, I could kind of see it depending on what tools you have available, where you can get away with doing doing classifieds that don't actually require a specialist potentially.
Yeah.
Like I'm thinking sabotage or the ones that care about veteran or elite troops or things like that.
Yeah, heavy
Um,
infantry, medium infantry, that kind of stuff. Yeah, and
Yeah.
there is more options now to get those kinds of cards, but it's always that firefight conundrum, because in my mind it's like, oh, if I just don't take specialists, I can deny my opponent the ability to get points just right off the bat.
Sure.
But you're also in some ways denying yourself potentially getting points, which might be what tips the game in your favor to be able to win in the first place.
Right. And before we get too far off track, I do want to mention that with Capture and Protect, you don't really need specialists. 9 points have
That's
to do with the
fair.
beacon, and anyone can grab it.
That's fair.
So if that helps your list building at all.
Yeah, no, it's just I never remember that. It's that, because didn't you used to need a specialist for it? Like
That might have been
4
true.
seasons ago, 5 seasons ago, or something.
Maybe. I don't recall.
But it's like I'm interacting with an objective. I need a specialist. That's just how my brain works on it.
Totally fair. But anyway, back to firefight. Trevor, I know it sounded like you might have some thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, I feel like over the years I've always just worried about the conundrum between specialists and lack of specialists to deny points. But I think I found I just go with the list I'm feeling good with during the tournament, or like I feel more comfortable with. Because then that way, like, oh, if I have more specialists actually in this list, I think it's 1 point for killing more specialists.
I think it's 2 off the top of my head, but I can double check.
Yeah, it is 2.
All right. So I've always, it's just I try to play a little cagey if I have more specialists in this list, if I'm feeling good with it, but it also gives me the option to do classifieds. It's mostly just a comfort thing. If it's the one I run the most with or I've had the most success with, I usually do that because I feel like I can play to the mission and play to my opponent and kind of keep things safe if I need to, because I'm feeling more confident in my game.
For sure. I don't know how long it's been since this was the case, but I feel like Firefight used to be more weighted on the main objectives and had only like 1 classified.
Yeah, it used to be
several
like
seasons ago. And I'm so glad that they threw in more classifieds to kind of pull it away from just being Annihilation Plus. Because, I mean, that's definitely one of those bloodthirsty missions already. And, then you can take all your drop troops and get, to the point where you're near guaranteed landings for a lot of things in the game. And you can just kill a lot of things real fast.
Oh, yeah. All the things really fast.
Raoul Specter's really fun for this sort of thing.
Yeah.
There's lots of good ones, of course, but
there's lots of good ones.
He likes being close.
Yeah. That's it. In that, in light, you really guess I only need specialists, like need them for supremacy. So, which is fine. It's fine. Maybe just make all the kill lists and just go with those. Every mission's annihilation if I get 1 or 2 objectives and kill you off the table.
Yeah, I guess the only game you want to prolong is Capture and Protect, because that one's round. Well, no, Supremacy is also. But both of those are round over round scoring.
But Capture and Protect, I don't feel like you need to prolong that one, because are you going to get something onto it first turn and still be on it? Like, that's kind of the thing. I've almost never seen that happen. So
bikes.
Yeah, but they usually don't live long enough to still be on it to score the points. So like, I don't know.
Just hand
I
it off.
feel, yeah. No, I feel like if I just, you just play capture and protect like it's annihilation, but you just make sure you grab that thing, the turn before you put them in retreat. That like you're good.
That is at least some points. You're right.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, do any of these missions like particularly worry you, or feel like you're not sure how to write a list you're happy with for a particular mission or anything like that? Any wrenches in the works for what you've been looking at?
Yeah, biotech for me. If I'm going the Ariadne route, it's gonna be
Yeah,
it's gonna be a mad dash to that 16-inch line.
definitely.
Yeah. See, I got that nice Pano BTS. I'll be good. Although weirdly, Zulu Cobras don't have BTS. It's very sad to find that out.
Yeah, and like Helots don't have BTS. Fusiliers don't have BTS.
Helots don't count. And are you really taking Fusiliers in Varuna? I mean, come on.
You're probably going Kamau.
Kamau and Orcs and Tags and all that stuff that has BTS. And it's a Helot. I don't care if they die.
Some BTS. Okay. So the qualifier is any amount of BTS above 0. Got it.
Yeah.
I was like, orcs aren't high BTS.
Yeah, but they have it.
They have it.
And multiple wounds.
And multiple wounds. Arguably the much more important part of that equation. Because the Biotech 4 zone is, what, damage 13?
14.
14?
Yeah.
Yeah, 3 BTS does not feel safe. when
No,
it's on the worst, if you're on the worst side of a coin toss from passing, that feels bad. But I mean, the Kamau BTS 6 is all right for the Kamau, but like you said, they're not multi wounds, so that makes a big difference. So going into this event, like, obviously it sounds like there are a couple potential pain points that you're worried about. But how is your overall confidence level going into the event? Do you feel like you'll probably have a pretty decent showing, a decent ranking in the event, or are you kind of thinking that this will be a fight for the middle?
Oh yeah, submarining real hard. It's a toss up. Obviously, it's a lot of it's going to depend on matchup, and yeah, it's just like I can do well with Varuna. Obviously, like it's Pano, but they have a lot of restrictions that I'm not super happy with. And that's okay. Like, it gives faction identity. I'm fine with that.
That is nice.
But yeah, I think that with everything else going on, I'm not as practiced as I normally am at this point. I think I solidly top half, but probably not top quarter.
All right. Fair enough.
We'll see what happens.
Of course. And what about you, Trevor? How are you feeling about the event in that regard?
I would love to finish top half, top quarter. I think I can probably do it this tournament. I know running Caledonia, it feels like I'm always on the edge of a knife blade. So if something heroic happens and the win happens, so I'm hoping that with enough practice, and I think I can probably get enough practice in June to feel pretty confident. So I'm hoping for a good turnout.
Remember, the answer is always 4 T2 sniper rifle Catarans.
What's the question?
I'm not an active lieutenant player. Like, it scares the hell out of me. But Wallace has just been heroic, and it gives my blood pressure up so high. It's not so fun. So
This is great.
it's been a blast. So yeah, I'm hoping worst case scenario, if I don't do as well, that there's some fun moments where I'm going, you know what, that's memorable. So
Absolutely. But yeah, speaking of which, any particular goals that you have otherwise, like, I really want, any units in particular that you're really interested to try out in a more competitive setting, or um, any interesting challenges that you're setting for yourself, either in list building or in gameplay or anything like that?
I've been trying to put units in my list that I think don't get a lot of love from the
Hmm.
majority of the community on some list building. I know I found a lot of success with Scott's Guard, and I've been trying out Uxia, the MSV1 version. I know the
Hmm.
special operative gets brought a lot, but I've been finding some interesting ways to make the MSV1 work that I'm actually kind of excited about. And I hope it, maybe throw some people off, or at least maybe
Hmm.
open some eyes while playing, where it's like, oh, she's got a lot of miles that
Yeah.
she's still, she's really good at some things that I think are benefit to this list or this tournament lineup. So
Yeah, people don't like the drop smoke template through smoke thing that she can do.
Yeah, I mean that's
she also has grenades and
Oh, I know.
ends when you're
I
already up there.
know.
It's kind of fun.
Yeah,
Not reliable, but
she's great. Yeah, no, and that's the thing I'm a big fan of too, is taking stuff that like people don't normally see, and I like there are a few of those in Varuna. Like I feel like Zulu Cobras fit into that a little bit, because oftentimes people just spring for the Crocman. And I don't really ever see people run Zulu Cobras outside of limited amounts in Varuna. Like they just don't run them in vanilla. And then there's the Echo Bravo, which is just fantastic, and I try to take one whenever possible because they always do fantastic. And again, that's another model
best.
that I never see people take. Like not even like normally in Varuna do I see people take Echo Bravos very often.
Do it. Bring Maximus.
I mean, that
Never.
is an option. I will have to build him to do so, though. He is sitting in the catacombs.
I've not played against a Varuna list with Maximus in it.
Yeah, could be fun.
Yeah,
Because just what
that's a
we needed
CC
was
dude.
another tech. Yeah, it's my second CC dude because I also have the Knight Montessa, and
This
everybody else
makes sense.
sucks.
Yeah, everyone else is bad,
Yeah,
or at least not good.
mostly not good.
I was looking at something in the list and I saw the Bulleteers and I'm like, where the fuck are the Peacemakers? And then I didn't see Peacemakers. I'm like, there's no fucking Varuna doesn't get Peacemakers. I'm like, oh, okay, there it is, the all blue one
Yeah,
at
they
the
get
end, but not at the
peacemakers
very end. I'm like, yeah, like I knew they had to, but
because
anyway,
I take the peacemakers, and people
yeah,
do not like it when I take the peacemakers.
Peacemakers are good. So, as usual, I mean, it's a 2-list format for the event. How are you guys looking to take advantage of that in this event? Are you? I mean, are you just taking one list to not worry about it? Uh, how is that looking so far? I know nothing's set in stone just yet because it's not the day of the event, so can't be.
yeah, I have one list that's a lot of individual units, some options to solo, with a lot of mobility and a lot of smoke thrown.
Sure.
Kind of
Okay.
get some flexibility and I guess clog up the middle with just
Mhm.
tempo. And then my other list is definitely geared towards fighting some apex pieces like heavy armor, tags, stuff like that. Just a lot of different ammo types, a lot of AP. So I've got they're kind of built towards all the missions. It's more
Hmm.
just like what I'm seeing on the other side of the table is how I've been building it, which is not
Okay.
something I normally do.
Sure. That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. So heavy armor versus something light that you can just template off the face of the board.
Hey man, chain rifles work.
They do.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn because I feel like I kind of want to run like like a list that just has a lot of guys and a lot of like weird tricks and stuff in it because
Sure.
that can be pretty effective. But I'm also hearing the siren call of the tags and orc core teams because they are just gross. Because like orcs, they're not special. They don't have any special skills. Their ballistic skill 14, 2 wound, armor 4, move 6 troopers. Like they are just they don't need special rules. They just do things because they have stats. So I don't know. And their loadouts are pretty interesting. Like I love Orc Firebox. Nobody else loves Orc Firebox because I hit them with Orc Firebox all the time. And they just do not like them. But I like Orc Firebox. They're like my favorite Orc Trooper.
Yeah. Firebox are neat guns.
Oh yeah. Especially when they're hitting on like 20s in a core team.
That would do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and that's one of those things where, do you have interest or do you see value with this lineup to do, perhaps a one of each, a more tricksy kind of camo game list or midfield list and some off the wall pieces, and another that's, primarily dumped into an orc core or, a tag or two, something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I do think that, my goal is to kind of go one of each. I think it's just interesting because as much as like going with one list and making it more of the killy list would be useful and going with the more the heavier beat stick stuff, I feel like there's a lot of mileage that I could get out of the kind of asymmetrical pieces that Veruna can take.
Totally.
Plus I don't like to just take a ton of helots, but one or two here and there. It's a lot of fun. It's just even just putting one out there. Like they're not great, but just the neurokinetics makes them something that your opponent does have to account for. Like it's supposed to skill 10, but getting those
11.
multiple shots. Oh, 11, yeah. I mean, 10.
Yeah,
They still
it's not
suck.
awful. Just not good.
But yeah, but it's just getting somewhere between 2 and 4 shots depending on what loadout you've put on them. Just makes them something that it has to be accounted for. Especially if they're in a position where it's going to be hard to make an advance without having to take arrows from them and something else.
Right.
Like that's just even better because having a split burst against something that's get like up to 4 shots back at you is not a good time.
Yeah, and there's definitely something to be said for just being able to throw a good chunk of extra dice back at you. And so that's pretty valuable by itself. And it's such a low cost of entry. I'm rather partial to the rocket launcher helot, but I mean, I
I
feel
do
like
love that.
all of them are pretty decent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there isn't one that sucks.
Yeah, I feel like
Yeah.
all the missions are killy too. So I don't know about you, but I've been building some strange lists or using units that I don't normally use because it's just like, okay, well, if it's killy, like what's the best or weirdest thing I can kind of bring that kind of I can fit into the mission, which I've actually enjoyed. I feel like there has been a lot of tournaments where I feel like there's more flexibility and not the obvious choice. Just
Yeah.
Also, nobody likes dealing with cutters.
Pretty much. I mean, I don't know. Nomads, maybe. because then they get to play with cutters, and that's fun.
You know what? They do not, because I like to do stupid things like recamo the cutter.
Stupid things, huh?
Yeah, the fun part of I'm recamoing this with my last order, and my opponent goes, "God damn it!" because they have a repeater that's half an inch out of zone range that they want to get up there to take it over, and I'm like, no,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to spend a bunch of orders if you want to make that happen.
Yeah, it definitely goes a long way. But yeah, it is interesting because that you'd mentioned, looking back, it is a pretty kill-centric set of missions overall. Like, not all of them directly, but I mean, obviously, Firefight and Biotech Vor are very directly. ResOps has a chance to be, though you don't necessarily know exactly what your objective is, but you're usually brawling anyway because there's a lot of ground control in various ways for that mission, trying to get on your opponent's half of the board to interact with tactical elements and things like that. But yeah, and Capture and Protect doesn't need specialists to get the job done, like we mentioned earlier. And Supremacy is kind of the main one where you'd like to have several specialists ideally, so you can. And honestly, you could do it with fairly few specialists if you just need them to turn on the consoles, and then otherwise you just need to put points in zones. So yeah, it is pretty interesting. It is definitely a very kill centric mission set. It feels like. And what is your general feeling on that? Because I know that some people tend to be fairly opinionated on what that split should look like.
I feel like we've gotten a lot of tournaments in the past that feel specialist heavy, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Or very like, and maybe this is like past ITS season special rules. It's like you feel like you're building very specific things. And I think this tournament, it's just been kind of nice to, I guess, not have to worry about making the right choice or the wrong choice with an army. I think it's more just like what feels fun at the moment. And I that's what I love about Infinity. It's like, I could bring anything and actually be pretty well off. I don't feel like I have to like shelve something because it might not be good at the mission.
Mm-hmm.
It's fair.
Yeah. I like to have a 3-2 split on a big event. I don't really care which way that split falls. But I do like to have it a little bit because if I can come up with like one list that'll do everything, I like doing that. But also I like having the option to do 2 different lists and kind of lean into different strengths. But again, not completely necessary because honestly, like, there's a lot of missions that even if there's a specialist mission that if you have just, a generic specialist operative or a forward observer or something that you can just still do. And even if you don't have a lot of them spread out, if you're super comfortable with the list and effective with it in other areas, you open up those opportunities to be successful regardless. So, I think there's a lot that comes down to the player and their ability to drive that list.
Yeah.
Sure, of course. Yeah, I think it's always going to be relevant. But yeah, I feel like it does seem a little bit more killy because I'm kind of with you, Ian, where I'd like to see things a little bit more kind of an even split down the middle that doesn't entirely require, but really kind of pushes you to think about having both of those lists for specific purposes. And just, I mean, and again, it's not an all murderous lineup or anything like that. But yeah, it does feel like it certainly leans a fair bit that way. And that does inform list building quite a bit, obviously. So I think that'll be interesting to see how that turns out and what people end up bringing to such an event.
I will say, though, that I am very pleased that I am not having to play unmasking again.
I was wondering if that was going to come up. I was thinking about it. I'm like, well, there's no unmasking.
Yeah,
which I
like I
do
said,
love
and
unmasking, but
there is
it's
absolutely
played a
nothing
lot.
wrong with unmasking. It just shows up so often that I'm just like, ugh, I don't want to play this mission.
Yep. Which is fair. I can understand that. But yeah, definitely one of those things that gets thrown into a lot of lineups, and I do like the idea of these kind of multi-staged missions. I wouldn't mind seeing more of that, but yeah, it did feel kind of overrepresented over the last couple of years. But yeah, I think that hopefully gives some interesting perspective on some thoughts going into the event and things that are being prepared for. To what extent people are preparing from our crew here. But before we dive into final thoughts for our episode, I did want to give a shout out to our wonderful patrons who help support the show. We greatly appreciate uh, you doing that for us and being able to financially contribute. And for those that are interested and willing, we have some benefits that we share as a show of gratitude from us, where we do things like early access to episodes. There's some spots on the Discord that are patron only. Uh, you get last round of voting in polls and things like that to just kind of, like I said, show our appreciation for you helping out the show, because that helps kind of subsidize costs for equipment or replacements or software subs and all that good stuff, and that really helps. So thank you very much for that. And on a more general note, even if that's not something that sounds interesting to you, we'd love to have you on our Discord, where you can meet and greet with us. We're pretty active there, so that you can you can chat with us, or if you have particular questions, we like to put in posts about recent episodes where you can kind of get feedback for us. That way we know, maybe we missed something important, or maybe we didn't consider a perspective that you could show us, or maybe you want to hear about certain things in particular. And those are all great ways to kind of show us what you're looking for out of metachemistry, which is always helpful. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, just being on the Discord gives you a chance at winning a $40 coupon code to Mo Games. So, if nothing else, there's raffles. So, that's fun too, right? But yeah, otherwise, Ian, Trevor, any final thoughts on your prep for SLS this year, for 2024 SLS? Ian.
Well, I should probably get on that prepping thing and making final lists.
Fair.
Yeah. I have some ideas. So I've been playing with some stuff that I've been having a lot of fun with. So I might just tweak that and have a couple variations on that. It's just kind of if I go tag route, do I want to do the cutter, or do I want to do the squallow, or do I want to introduce a new element and do the Maximus? We'll kind of see. But yeah, I feel like I'm just gonna need to tweak something that I already kind of have ready to go, and see if I can just refine it for this. But shouldn't be any big deal. There's only so many options I have in Varuna.
Sure. I mean, Caledonia's got an even more shallow list of options, but I don't hear Trevor complaining.
Oh, that's because Caledonia options are just absolutely brutal and amazing. Like every time we talk, I'm like, God, I don't want to play Varuna anymore. I want to play Caledonia.
Good stuff.
Yeah, we're getting into that part where it's the final month where it's just refining lists. I know I'm gonna try to lock them in pretty close either this week or next week, and then just try to get as many games in, just to kind of feel comfortable, because I feel like a swap of a unit or two is not going to be beneficial, and starting over is definitely not going to work for me. So,
agreed.
So yeah, I'm kind of excited to kind of figure it out and kind of get used to it, and then once the week of the tournament happens, I know I always look forward to SLS. So Can't come any sooner.
Absolutely. Right? Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a great event. I had a great time there last year, and I'm sure it will be a good time this year for everyone attending. And if you're on the fence about it, definitely worth the trip. It is certainly a great show that those guys put on. And for me, I guess my final thoughts on your SLS preparation kind of mirrors what Ian says. You should probably do it. So, yeah, I think getting reps in with the lists that you want to play and do any, fine tuning, which hopefully there's not much fine tuning left to be done at this point, and it's just more about the reps themselves. So, trying to focus on those. And yeah, if you need to bounce off somebody at game night, you know where to find me. I'll be watching. Awesome. Well, I hope that everyone who attends has a wonderful time. I have no doubt that that will be the case. And yeah, we'll be back with a post game episode to talk about how that went for everyone. Here in a little while once the event passes. So, with that, I have been Devin.
I'm Trevor.
And Ian. And that's the meta.